So this is the OG Spider-Man. Everyone talks about Tom Holland's latest iterations that he's doing now, Avengers ties in and stuff, and also the cinematic universe sort of Spider-Man, but and also maybe the other cartoon one that came out, which did quite well, which is kind of reimagining. And then you've got other versions, obviously animated series and all that on TV. But this was the OG reboot of Spider-Man. I mean, there was one in the 70s, I think there was a TV show and a cartoon show, a couple of cartoon different versions as well. But Spider-Man, one of the OG characters of Marvel, I grew up with these comics. I even owned number 4, which was worth quite a bit. Had to sell it for hardly anything to get a train ticket home when I was at university. So the life of a student, I think that version that I had is probably, I think I sold it for like $90 at the time. I think it was worth like 400, 500, but I think now it's probably worth like several thousand, tens of thousands maybe, I don't know. But yeah, number 4 I had. And this is actually the Raimi trilogy. Now, Sam Raimi is obviously known, I think, for horror, I believe. This is the original version that was done by Tobey Maguire before the Andrew Garfield version, before the Tom Holland version. And it took a while for this to be actually made. It nearly didn't get made. It had a bit of a development hell going on. There was a lot of issues around rights between studios. And also, would you believe, even James Cameron wrote a version, which is a slightly more darker version of it, of Spider-Man, even in the 90s. But eventually, Sony Pictures got the rights and hired horror auteur Sam Raimi to do this, who was obsessed, a bit like me, with Spider-Man. As a kid, a bit like me, I used to love and collect Spider-Man comics. And I think something about the character created by Stan Lee is that, especially, I used to love reading the Vintage Age, Golden Age, Silver Age, Silver Age Spider-Mans, the original ones, because there's something about the art and something about the storyline, something about the era at the time. And I think that it's kind of interesting. Anyway, the film's really cool. It's got a really good arch villain, which actually helps a lot because Maguire really nails it as Peter Parker, but opposite one of the legendary villains, the Green Goblin, played by Willem Dafoe, who's incredible in this as well as having his friend Harry Osborn, played by James Franco, and Kirsten Dunst, who played Mary Jane. I've forgotten the lady, I think Rosemary something, the lady who's quite a well-known legendary veteran actor who plays Aunt May. Another guy who plays Uncle Ben, who's pretty well-known. There's quite a few well-known characters in this. Sorry, actors in this. There's some interesting points around this. There's a great cafeteria scene when he fights Flash Thompson in the cafe, and Tobey Maguire, the actor, actually caught most of that food. It wasn't actually CGI. They actually did it for real. He also trained very hard to get lean and mean and sort of tough, which was quite impressive. But he didn't want to be bulky because the original Spider-Man obviously he's got super strength, but he's actually he's just a teenager, right? Technically, in the comic, the story. So Raimi didn't want him to look like a bodybuilder or anything. He wanted him to just look like a kid with responsibility. Obviously, the great line, with great power comes great responsibility. And ironically, I've got it here. Have a look. This is the actual the scene from the comic. And that's what I love about Spider-Man. It's really good about teaching morals, and all through the early stories in the comics, they also taught responsibility and how to act, and a lot of young people learnt how to operate in life, I guess, from these comics. It's what I really love about it, teaching responsibility and morals. And I think we've come a big circle now in life. We've kind of recently gone back to that. Jordan Peterson talks about being responsible. A lot of online sort of gurus on YouTube talk about stoicism and being responsible. So it's kind of good that in the 60s they were teaching this. What I really like about the the Raimi trilogy, and even the first one is this one is and all three, by the way, are, and all the two Andrew Garfield films are also on Netflix at the moment. So this is actually number 2 in the top 10 films. So people really love this, and it still holds its test of time. So go and watch it if you can. What I love about the film in 2002, this one, is that it's kind of like it has like versions of it's effectively a masterpiece, okay? And it's just really well acted. It's a sort of quite melodramatic, sort of 90s melodrama, but it's also, we were used to, but it's also got a lot of digital experimentation in the filmmaking, especially when he's swinging through the city and all that. I think a lot of that was done digitally using new sort of technology at the time, which is groundbreaking, probably quite used to it now with all the Avengers, green screen stuff, but in that time it was quite intense. It's also got a little bit old school Hollywood. I mean, it's quite theatrical. It's Peter Parker's Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker's very awkward, vulnerable, very soft, and that's what makes him sort of growing into the superhero quite a lot more intense and also believable. And I think he resonated with the audience a lot more than sort of people sort of see now. Some of the movies, the modern day Marvel films, are not that great, and the actors aren't that. You don't really connect with them as much. Additionally, you've got Willem Dafoe, who's a legendary actor, very understated actor, doesn't take himself too seriously. I believe he actually lives in Italy now, but he's one of my favourite actors because he's just intense as characters. Super nice guy in real life. He does a lot for charity, does a lot to support people, but he's pretty intense as the two roles. Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, sort of plays really, really good roles. And I think that just the father-son thing between him and Harry kind of resonates. A lot of young men who have the same kind of thing with their dads. It's kind of, you can kind of resonate a lot about family life. People have lost. Peter Parker's obviously an orphan, lives with his aunt and uncle. You can resonate with that. The poignant moments of loss. When people pass away in the film, you're like, wow, kind of really poignant and resonate with it. And the fact that they used a horror director, auteur, to make this is quite interesting, because I think it's not hugely sort of cuddly. It's not a hugely cuddly film. I think it has edges of horror, the way they made it and the way they shot it. So I think it's quite interesting around that too. Number 2 is also a really, really good film. That's also on Netflix. Go and check it out. Number 3, interesting, quite interesting. I mean, it has a really cool sort of villains in 2 and 3, but number 3 I feel sort of got squashed a little bit, and I think that we'll go into those reviews or film chats. These aren't really reviews, are they? Just me talking about movies, but we'll go into that one another time. But this is like Spider-Man. To me, this is like Blade, one of the earlier Marvel films, like Iron Man, the first one. I think those kind of films are kind of iconic. The original Thor as well, in the way they were all made. So Thor, Iron Man, this Spider-Man, and the Blade, the original Blade. I think they were just all made at different times. The 90s and 80s were just different times. This was actually released in 2002, but I think it might have been shot in 2001, I'm not sure. But, just before that, development went through a lot. So I believe that it kind of we still have that remnants of the 90s in this film. And I think it just has that style of action and, adventure. And I just think it's great. It deals, Raimi used a lot of human points in this. Used the original story, didn't really mess around with the story, but added some really good points around the characters that made this a timeless film. We talk a lot about guilt, talk about responsibility, we talk about loss, we talk about working class struggle, and I think a lot of people can resonate with this right now. As a result, it's really cool that this has come back, and we can actually watch it on Netflix. Being, you know, before you could only really watch it on Sony's channel, I believe, or Disney's channel. Well, Disney owns Marvel, but I think this is kind of the weird thing about the Marvel universe is that Sony owned the rights for Spider-Man, so it's kind of, and a few other characters. Because when Marvel was struggling in studio, they actually sold a lot of their rights to, I believe, to Sony, so to kind of stay alive, and I think Sony then have retained those. So sadly, they've not. I think they have an agreement now where they can put the Spider-Man character into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Why he appeared here and there on the. I think he appeared in the Avengers films and Captain America film, I believe. Certain point, was he in the Captain America film? Maybe perhaps the Iron Man film. I think he was in for a little bit, but it's still like a split thing because Sony owned the rights to Spider-Man, which is a bit of a sad thing. It would be nice if Marvel owned everything. But there you go. That's how this is Spider-Man 2002. Just my thoughts. One of my favourite films of all time. Dafoe is just pure theatre in the film. He's just crazy. Such a good character. He's really good at playing mad characters, so incredible. And you know, Raimi's sort of DNA from films such as The Evil Dead and using kind of some of the horror sort of camera angles and lighting in here, it's you know, it's really, really interesting. I think the Goblin, the original comic, he actually wore a mask, but they felt probably it was a bit too you know, maybe a little bit too goofy, so they went with the full metallic helmet, which is kind of cool, but a little bit sort of divisive because they didn't follow the original kind of Halloweenish character that we had in the comics. So I see this more as like a horror bridge film, superhero film. Yeah, really interesting. Shot, I do believe it was shot in 2001, pre 9/11, because there was a teaser in the early teaser where he's trapping a helicopter in between the two towers, but after 9/11 it was pulled and the film was delayed and they had to readjust the marketing and stuff like that. So it became one of the sort of last pre 9/11 blockbusters, really, in its tone, earnest, hopeful, uncomplicated heroism. And then you've got obviously the iconic kiss in here between Maguire and Kirsten Dunst. So where he's kind of hanging upside down, and there are memes around that and stuff where she kisses him upside down as Spider-Man, and apparently it was really hard to shoot because it was heavy rain and he was literally having the water going into his nose, so he described as if it was like drowning, so it was horrible for him, although it's such an iconic thing. I mean, it changed superhero economics. Budget was about, I think it's about 140 million. Box office was about 825. Did really well. One of the first films ever to make over 100 million in a single weekend. And they say this was the precursor to films then opening like this. I mean, without this precedent, you wouldn't have had The Dark Knight be so successful. You wouldn't have had MCU dominance as it was. So it also proved that comic book movies can be successful and can be sort of prestige films and highly profitable. So really, really good, really good film. I'd highly recommend. Go and check it out and let me know what you think in the comments. Which versions do you prefer? Do you prefer Raimi's version with Tobey Maguire? Do you prefer Andrew Garfield's version, or do you prefer Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, or do you prefer the newer Tom Holland? Let me know and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.